Ken Jenkins is with us now. He's a professional emergency manager with extensive experience. Ken has built a remarkable track record successfully preparing for and responding to emergencies ranging from severe turbulence in our skies to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Overall, responding to 12 fatal aviation accidents, prepares transportation companies to respond to an accident as well as dealing with such events as SARS and, yes, pandemic flu and Ebola. Mr. Jenkins, welcome to the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV.
Good morning, sir.
The steps, we're learning, courtesy of Blaze News and other sources, that Mr. Obama is trying to, now after we've been talking about Ebola for weeks and him sending troops over to Africa to handle these things, now we're looking at additional steps here in America to stop the possibility of an epidemic breaking out. We have one confirmed case in Dallas, and that's about it. A man who, by all accounts, lied to get into the United States so we could save his life. But how can we, utilizing the stuff on this end, and because I've been making the case, doing security on this end as far as disease prevention is probably way after the horse has gotten out of the barn, that really the first round needs to be in the country of departure. But tell me what we can do back here at home.
Well, and I'm happy to. There are lots of things we can do at home and things that have been done. If you go all the way back to 2005, the Department of Transportation, along with the Centers for Disease Control, wrote extensive guidelines on quarantinable diseases being brought in by aviation, by planes, and what steps would be taken. And so that plan's out there through the DOT and CDC. Also, within the United States, I think you'll see this with almost all air carriers, one of the first lines of defense are the airport employees themselves, not just the airlines, but the airports. And most airline employees, frontline employees, for example, Chris, are trained in looking and observing for symptoms of outside of just a common cold. What are some of like for Ebola, for example? Airlines are training their employees on what the symptoms are. And if a flight attendant, for example, in flight notices somebody doesn't quite look right in terms of health, can contact the cockpit, who contacts dispatch, who contacts then the CDC or their public health officials. There are 20 CDC quarantine stations across the United States. Houston is one of them, for example. And if somebody comes in on a plane there that has displayed symptoms, then somebody from the CDC could come on board and check them out and then decide what's going to happen at that point moving forward.
All right. Well, you know, I just had a buddy of mine, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you who he is. It's a guy that works up in Dallas named Chris Crock. I was filling in for him on WBAP last week. He tells a story of him coming home, and he picked up this stomach bug, this flu bug. So he's on the plane coming home after attending a funeral, and he's getting sick. Now that's not your typical cold, but he's sitting there and he was worried but everybody looking at him thinking, oh my, they all think I'm from Dallas and I have Ebola. That's what they're thinking. So and again, this goes back to, you can be relatively assured if somebody is coming out of Liberia, at least be better assured that if they have a fever trying to come out of Liberia or these heavily infected areas, that there's a chance that it's a better chance it's going to be an Ebola infection. However, if you're screening on this end and folks are taking connecting flights from London or from Paris or from Spain, and they're coming here to the United States, it could be the cold, it could be the flu, it could be whatever. It just seems that our folks on this end have so much to deal with as far as security, terrorism. Why put more on their plate?
Well, certainly we want to, if you look at it from that aspect of putting more on their plate, it's also to stop any type of pandemic or epidemic starting. And of course, nobody wants that to happen. I mean, it would certainly bring transportation to a halt. But at the same time, if you look at, I think your point to stop it at the source is certainly key here. Sure. In Africa, there are varying levels of protocol, from active systems of screening to passive systems of screening. But they're only as good as the people that tell the truth about what they did. Like Mr. Duncan apparently lied coming in.
Duncan is the guy that's up in that hospital, up in Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas, who lied to get here. He said he was coming to marry a woman that he's been with for 19 years. That this was the time that he was going to marry her. A lot of folks believe he lied to come to the United States to save his life. But it seems the focus now by the administration is taking care of things at home. Meanwhile, we've sent 3,000 troops overseas, and there seems to be little conversation about stopping it at its source. And Ken, this has been my push all along. You've got to set up a quarantine situation with these highly infected areas. If you want to leave, then you're able to leave, but only after like a 21 or 23-day quarantine. What say you?
Sure. Well, I agree. I think that there needs to be on the front end of what's going on, and I think that's being done with the additional troops that are being sent over and then trying to stop the spread. Nigeria, for example, hasn't reported any new cases. They've pretty much brought it under control. It's now getting it in Sierra Leone and other locations like that. And then that's where then those additional protocols on transportation systems out of Africa and that part of the world then come into play. Then look at the additional cities like JFK, Newark, Chicago, and Dallas into the United States, where as an added level of defense, we're going to check, because you could board a flight in Africa and show no symptoms, but by the time you get to the U.S., be symptomatic. So why not take that extra step to check temperature? It only takes a few seconds.
Sure. And
see if we can stop it here.
All right. Ken Jenkins, professional emergency manager with extensive experience. He has been all over the place. He's handled aviation crashes, 9/11, just simple turbulence calls, even SARS, pandemic flu, and Ebola. Ken, appreciate your time and expertise here on The Voice of Texas.
You're welcome, Chris. Thank you.